See you. Am I not going to see you for
Okay,
this, Dr. Hewish?
it'll start here in just a few seconds, I think.
Okay.
Okay, so here we go. So it is recording. Okay, I don't know why there was a delay this time, but we're okay. So, students, welcome to this next interview. Larissa Campbell is going to be with us, and she's an alum from what year was it? Did you graduate?
Gosh, 2007.
2007. You're still a kid to me. And so Lacey's gonna, I go by Lacey. I got to say Lacey. So Lacey is going to be talking about her work that she's doing now and how she got to that point. So Larissa, Lacey, go ahead and tell us about what your job is now, where you're at, and what you're doing.
Okay, so I currently am my title is an account executive for Fox Sports West and Fox Sports San Diego. So I'm actually on the sales side, even though at Point Loma, I was a broadcast journalism and public relations double major. So obviously, we can get into that, but I started out on the broadcast side wanting to be a sports reporter and really just discovered this world of advertising sales, which I absolutely love. And if you have the right personality for it, then it's a really fun career. And that's where I'm at right now.
Great. So tell us what your job is like. What do you do what's the title again?
So my job is to, if you,
What's your title? What's the title of your?
sorry, you're breaking up a little bit. You want me to tell you a little bit about my job?
Yeah, what's the title of your job?
So my title is I'm an account executive. And what I do is if you watch any sports game, so I cover the Padres, the Clippers, the Kings, the Ducks, the Angels, every LA team except and San Diego team, with the exception of the Dodgers and the Lakers because they have their own network. So I work with them all we broadcast all of their games. And a bunch of their we create magazine shows, everyday shows about them, and behind the scenes shows that we air on our networks. So Fox Sports San Diego, Fox Sports West, and Fox Sports Prime Ticket are our three networks. And so I work with a bunch of brands. So any advertising that you see that's broadcast within those games. So any commercials that you see, anytime you see the AT&T halftime show, the Cadillac Ducks intermission, the Chevy keys to the game, anything that you see, any branding that you see within the game on the broadcast side, I do that. So I work with these brands and they come to me and they say, or I go to them and I can pitch them really creative ideas. Or they can come to me and say, hey, we have this much advertising dollars, how can we integrate our brand inside of your broadcast game? And so we can come up with some creative ways to make sure that their brand is showcased within all the games. And I want to iterate that this is different from any signs that you see inside the stadium. So there's two different brandings and advertising sales going on here. An advertiser can buy real estate inside an arena or inside a ballpark, and they can hang their sign up, and that's called in stadium. And so all the teams have their own salespeople who will sell those. I do anything that you see on TV. So anytime, like I said, commercials, or anytime a broadcaster mentions a brand on air, that's what I do. So I currently handle about a $9 million account list. So I handle about $9 million worth of advertising from about anywhere from 10 to 20 different clients. And I make sure that their dollars are well spent. I can track and see how many people are watching each time their name is mentioned on air. and I do a lot of creative, really fun creative stuff to figure out, because nowadays, people want to be integrated really creatively with their advertising. I do some script writing for them to write some commercials. So, a lot of stuff that I did at Point Loma really helped me get to where I'm at, and really kind of worked within it, even though, I may not be a sports reporter, but it's still broadcast, and I still had a production background, which helps, kind of where I'm at right now, and it all kind of flows together.
Yeah, good. Now I want to go more in depth on that particular uh, topic related to how you got here. But let's do this. I'm someone
Yeah.
who
Okay. So
has
that's
millions of
actually a
dollars.
really fun story. Um,
Okay, so
so, I mean,
so
back as long,
can you hear me?
yeah, you're breaking up a lot, but
That's
go ahead.
Yeah. So what I'd like to do is so that the students will have a sense of what your job looks like. So I'm a millionaire and I have a product to sell or a service to sell, and so how do you go about? What are you going to say to me to get me to give you hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars to get my business to advertise on sports?
Okay. It's a very good question. So we surprisingly use a lot of PowerPoint, and we have a lot of what we call capabilities.
Hmm.
So, besides just commercials, and I would really challenge the students to watch a sporting game. Unfortunately, we can't. There's no live games right now, but there's a lot of re-airs. Sit down, watch an entire sporting game from front to end, start to finish, and write down every time you hear the broadcaster mention a brand, or you see a graphic come up on the screen. Write down the advertiser and what it was, because those are all the different creative, what we call capabilities that we can do. So, yeah, essentially you have money and you're trying to figure out, where do you spend it? Do you want to spend it in prime? Do you want to advertise and reach all the people who watch The Voice and watch This Is Us, and watch those big family shows, or should you spend it on sports? So, what I'll start with is, I'll say, okay, what are your demos? What are your demographics? Who are you trying to reach? Okay, you want to reach persons 25 through 54. Well, there is a small percentage, or there's a ton of people watch that. What A lot of your demographic will be watching TV between these hours, the prime time, the prime hours, 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. So do you want to spend your advertising dollars on news, where you're going to be combative against everyone else? You're not really going to stand out with your brand's news. If you watch the news, they have anywhere from 5 commercials to up to 10 commercials on their commercial break. Well, with sports, we only have 3 commercials on our commercial break. It's called a commercial pod. So anytime, the smaller the commercial pod, the more higher visibility you're going to be seen. So, of course, going back to demos, we are going to skew a lot more heavy in the male demographic. So, I specifically will reach out to male dominated brands. If it's a car brand, usually there's all kinds of research, of course, that shows, for the most part, men are the decision makers when buying, purchasing a big item, like a car, or a big financial service or something like that. So, we already have the one up there, knowing that we're going to be reaching the dominant male, and then the male category, and then obviously our high visibility, because we only have 3 commercial pods. And then another thing about sports is that it is watched 95% live, which means a lot of people don't record it, or maybe they'll record it with just a 2-minute time delay, which is really important to advertisers these days, because these days everyone has, connected TVs. They're watching from gaming devices. They're, especially if they're watching all their prime shows, then they're recording them, watching them later. A great example is, one of my favorite shows on TV is Modern Family, and I have no idea what day that actually airs on TV because I just record it and watch it whenever I have time. Well, with sports, you're not watching it at just another day. You're watching sports usually that day. If you're recording it at all, maybe on like, an hour or two delay. And so that's kind of where we have, where we're able to win a lot of those advertising dollars, is because our viewers are watching sports live. There's high visibility, high recognition, high retainability. And then also fans are passionate about it. You're watching the screen like this, there's no other show that you're watching like this, or biting your nails, or you're nervous, or you're cheering. You're not doing that with news, but with sports you are.
Okay. Okay. So it looks like there's a bunch of kind of different skill sets and knowledge sets that have to do with convincing these people to spend a lot of money. And so I'm wondering, also, but I had a first I wanted to ask another question. So do you guys then also follow up and create the advertisements?
So yes, in some cases we do. So depending on the client, if it's a big client like Cadillac,
Mhm.
for the most part, they're going to have their commercials produced. But at the same time, every year I'm trying to sell Cadillac something new, so that we're not just doing the same thing over and over again. So for instance, one of the most recent things that I sold them was, hey, we're going to do it's called a Cadillac ride along. So how about, 6 times a year, we get some professional athletes to come ride in your car, and we'll produce a little 2-minute segment of them driving your car and having some sort of conversation, whether it's about their team, their life, or maybe, just who they are as a person outside of sports. And so it's definitely a more casual,
Mhm.
get to know you type of segment. And that's something that we will produce, and that's kind of where we get to get creative, and that's where my script writing comes in handy, that I learned from Point Loma. All of my production, tactics that I learned from Point Loma, even editing. I do some editing too. So even though we have an entire production crew, I am very hands-on with my clients, because at the end of the day, I'm getting all the commission, and that's why sales is so great. You get commission in sales, so the harder you work, the more clients you bring in, the more money you get. So no one's gonna be as take your clients and your products as serious as you. So having all those all those tools at my fingertips, and knowing that I know how to edit and write and produce an actual 2-minute segment is really important, and that helps me be really successful in thinking outside the box and being really creative for my
Yeah.
clients.
Great. So you have other people that have the same kind of position and are doing the same kind of thing. Is that right? So do they also
Yeah,
have those skill sets?
a lot of them do not. So a lot of them, so it varies. Everyone has their own expertise. So I would say, a lot of people maybe come from just a sales background, and so they just know how to sell,
Hmm.
um, just know how to sell the commercials, or talk about sports or whatever. And they're a little bit handicapped, I would say, because they don't know all the different versatilities that we can do with production, or with their client. So no, I think the answer is, yeah, the more well-rounded you can be, the more skill sets you can have, and this goes for any job, and especially in broadcast,
Right.
because nowadays, back in the day, they just wanted reporters who could just stand up there with a microphone and look good. Nowadays, a reporter has to be able to, write their own stuff, record it, shoot it. Our reporters have to bring their own cameras, so they have selfie sticks, and they have to record their own stuff, edit it and then send it off to us. And so, and I think the same goes for sales. And so the more well-rounded, the more tools that you can bring to the table, the better you're going to be in your job.
Good. Good. So let's go ahead and now talk a little bit about where professionals started, where you started as a in sales. So as I recall, it was in San Diego. Go ahead and talk about how that started and to get to the point where we are today.
Yeah, I think so. This is what I would really like to get across. This is a really fun story. I know, being in college, you're maybe a little bit stressed of how to get your next job. We actually I do a lot of interviewing for coordinators and assistants because, we have a new assistant about every year because you should only be an assistant for about a year before you get launched off into the next phase. So we get to interview our own assistants, and I cannot tell you how many horrible interviews we get or candidates that we get who are so underqualified. And right now, being in college it's not just, don't just go to school. Like you right now you are starting your resume. And so everything that you can get involved in, every internship that you can do, like you need to take it, because coming out of college, you need to be just completely just be able to fill up an entire resume by the time you get out of college. And we have people who come out and interview for us, and we're like, what have you been doing for 4 years in college? And they say, oh, I've just been going to classes, and they are never going to get a job. So I worked really hard on doing everything that I could. So I was a 4-year collegiate athlete, played softball all 4 years. On top of that, I had side jobs so that I could actually have cash. So I was a nanny every week, and then I also gave softball lessons on the side for those. That was my cash flow. And then on top of that, I took every internship that I could. So I had 4 internships, 3 at the local newses there in San Diego, and then 1 in New York, where I worked for CBS New York for a summer, sports. And I covered, all the Hall of Fame inductions, all of the drafts, NFL draft, NBA draft. It was really fun. And so that really helped me. Your classes, Dr. Hewitt, really helped me, because when I graduated, I could say that I had 3 years experience, on camera, or 3 years experience editing, which a lot of people can't say that they did. So that was really helpful, script writing. So right out of college, like I said, I really wanted to be a sports reporter. I knew I wanted to be in sports, and that was the only job I knew that existed in sports. And so from my internships, I was hired on by, at the time it was Fox 5 News, and I was a video editor. And I was the first one in the newsroom. So I worked the 2 a.m. to 11 a.m. shift. So any video that came in from my reporters, I would be in the edit bay, and I would be editing it and getting it ready for the morning news that went on at 6 a.m. that morning. I would also help write some of the scripts leading into the news, and that the anchors would actually be reading. So, but I made no money. Local news it really does not make you a lot of money at first. You start at the bottom, no health insurance. And so the goal is, for anyone who works at local news, is to just make your connections and then create your reel so that you can be as a reporter, and then start sending your reel out to local news stations. Well, what happened for me is that while I was, video editing, and I was creating my reel on the side, I noticed, I was working like I said, I was working 2 a.m. to 11 a.m., wasn't making any money. So then I would nanny from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then I would go give softball lessons from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. And then I would work out, eat, sleep, and then get up at 1 a.m. and do it all over again. And I was working holidays, weekends, like I said, you can't call in sick in the newsroom because there's no one to cover for you. So it was Christmas Eve, and I was the only one in the newsroom, and I looked over into our parking lot to the side where all the sales people parked, and their parking lot was empty. And I remember always watching them in the window. They would drive in really fancy cars and walk in really nice outfits. In the newsroom, we're all in sweats and pajamas because we're not on TV. We're behind the scenes and we're working crazy hours. And so I asked my boss, I said, what does those people do in that building? They were in a totally different building from us. And he goes, oh, those are the salespeople. And right then and there, I said, I don't know what that is, but I want to do that. And so I started just looking for jobs on, I think it was the newspaper at the time, where they were they're still posting jobs, either the newspaper or like, it wasn't LinkedIn, didn't really exist yet. Can't remember where I found the job. And I found a job at ABC News that was hiring for a junior account executive. I had no idea what it was. And and they called me in. I got the interview and I ended up going back. I had to go back and interview 5 different times. And I even had to create and pitch and do an entire presentation to the general manager because they really liked me, but I had no sales experience. So they wanted to see, what I really had. And I want to tell you guys that after every single interview that I went on, so I went there 5 times. I drove there 5 times. I met with a different person. And after each time, I hand wrote a thank you note and I bought some sort of little gift that was indicative of my conversation with that person. So one woman, I noticed that she loved Starbucks. She had coffee the entire time we were drinking, or we were talking. So I wrote her handwritten thank you note and I delivered it with a Starbucks card. One guy talked about how much his son loves volleyball, and he's a big beach volleyball guy. So I delivered a thank you note with a volleyball, and my thank you note was so cheesy. It said, I hope to play on your team one day. I've delivered cookies. One guy talked about, he asked me an intellectual question about, if I hit a stop sign in the road, do I keep, and no one's watching, do I keep going or do I stop at it? And so I had a cookie done for him that in the shape of it looked like a stop sign, and I delivered it to him with a thank you note. So I did everything I could to stand out and to show them that I really, really wanted that job. And even though I had 0 experience, they hired me, and my starting salary at the time was $70,000, which was amazing. So it was my first, big job, and that like is unheard of, right? Our coordinators start around like 30,000, and so I wasn't supposed to get that job, but I think, because I was so dogmatic, because I did everything I could to stand out, and I had everything buttoned up. And every time I showed up, I never showed up empty-handed. I always had something. Something that I had was like a presentation or a PowerPoint portfolio, just to show them, that I really wanted it. And that's how I got my foot in the door. It's a really long story, but I'm going to try to fast forward how I got into ESPN. So from that, long story short, I got hired on at ABC News. I was, Pee Wee junior account executive, and so I knew that I really wanted to get to know everybody. So I bought a candy dish. I was very poor, but I bought a candy dish, and it was really expensive to keep this candy dish full. But I did it. I set it on my desk so that everyone would come by my desk and get to know me. And it worked. And so that's a little tip that I will pass on. If you guys get your first job, do whatever you can to get people to know you. Bring in donuts, have a candy dish on your desk, because you want to be known. And then also I went to the VP at the station, who I had never seen before, I'd never met. Who was I? I was just a new hire junior account executive, and our offices were on different ends of the building. But I went to him and I said, introduced myself. And then I said, I want to start a company softball team so that we can bring all of our different departments together. Would you fund it or fund part of it? And he said, you know what? Not only will I fund it, but I'm going to give you a spending account to buy all the different products that you need so that you guys can buy gloves and bats and helmets and shirts. He goes, because that's such a great idea. And so I started a company softball team, and because of that, the VP knew my name. And every time we had a big meeting, he would always give me a shout out and give our softball stats. All right, and the softball team is currently 5-4. So go out and cheer them on next Tuesday or whatever. So that's another tip that I would advise to you guys. Do whatever you can to stand out. Create something, show some sort of initiative that you're a starter, that you're an instigator, and that you're a leader. Because I did that, when a job opportunity, a promotion presented itself, we were launching a new digital division. The VP chose me to launch it. And so he said, you know what, Larissa, has showed some initiative, that she's a go-getter. So I want her to launch this new digital division that we're going to be launching. And so I led it for the company. And so I was promoted within 8 months of being there, 6 or 8 months, I can't remember. And so I became a digital account executive before digital was even a thing. And so I had, the company flew in some other account executives from other parts of the state so that I could train them, because I had a lot of success with that. I just found sales was just my niche. I was a people person, and I believed in what I was selling, so that I wasn't just a salesperson. I was actually giving them selling them products that helped businesses. And just by chance, I was on a plane ride from New York to LA, and with the creator, one of the originators of ESPN. At the time, his name was John Walsh, and at the time he was, executive VP, one of the original creators of ESPN. And I introduced myself, and I told him, he lived in Connecticut, but he was in LA for business all the time. I said, can I take you out to lunch? Can I take you out to coffee? Can I just pick your brain? Like, can I please do anything I can to stay in touch with you? And I pestered him so much that he was like, okay, fine. Yeah, you can meet me at this time. We can have coffee. And we did that for about a year. Every time he was in LA, I would drive up from San Diego and just meet him for coffee and just pick his brain on the sports world, and just like how to better myself, and where I should go next. And for a year of spending my gas money, finally a position opened up at ESPN, and he passed me to the manager. And the hiring manager was actually in New York. And so I told him, hey, I'm going to be in New York, for the next month, which was actually not true. But, just sometimes you have to just put yourself out there. And I said, what day and time would work for me to come meet you? And he gave me a day and a time. So I booked my flight and booked my hotel, and I flew out there, pretending that I had already been out there for a month. And the day we were supposed to meet, he had a car accident. And so he canceled on me. And he felt so bad that he canceled on me, that the next job opportunity that opened up in LA, he passed me to that hiring manager. And again, I went into this job interview as a go-getter. I'm gonna get this job no matter what it takes. And so I showed up with everything I could: a resume, a portfolio, some examples, all of my stats. And I got hired on at ESPN to launch a digital network that they were launching in Los Angeles for the first time. And so that really launched my sales career and sport in the sports world. And fast forward from ESPN, and then I helped launch Fox Sports San Diego, and then from San Diego, I got promoted up to Los Angeles, and where I am now. So long story short, but I really want the kids to know, just how important interviews are, and how important little things that you do in the workplace are, because you really want to make sure that if you really want to go somewhere, you have to show them that you're, someone a little different, that you want to be where you're at.
So if maybe 30 seconds, you actually said this maybe prior to this, but advice to students, they're in college. What do you suggest they do to get to the place where you are at now? While they're in college, what should they do?
While they're in college, do everything, be a part of every club, every, uh, internships for sure. If you're too young to get an internship, then find some sort of club or extracurricular activity that you can be a leader in. Um, if you can, whatever it is, because that's what jobs want to see. They want to see leadership. They want to see people who are go-getters, commitment. If you're not a part of a sport, then find something that you can be a part of for all 4 years, because they want to see long-term commitment too. That, hey, I was a part of this for 4 years. I wrote for the newspaper. Wrote yearbook, whatever. Anything you can do to start building your resume now, because when you graduate college, you should have a full resume. There's no excuse to show up to a job interview with the only thing on your resume is just 4 years college. So now is the time to start building your resume.
Yeah, good. The last question is, I didn't mention this, but I think
Yeah.
I've done it when you've been on campus, and that is the faith dimension. The media business can be cutthroat, it can be difficult, it can be challenging in many ways. What kind of advice do you have to them about that aspect of their lives?
Yeah, the world needs Christians everywhere. They don't just need Christians at church. So we're called to be, God, Jesus didn't just hang out with Christians, right? Like, we're called to be everywhere and be in the world, not of the world. And so I think, Christians are needed everywhere. In my workplace, I have actually become, a mentor to a lot of the coordinators. I'm not standing on a pulpit and preaching every second that I get, but if you are a Christian and you're in your heart, if you believe it and you live it, the people will notice. People will notice, hey, she doesn't curse like everybody else. She doesn't use the Lord's name in vain. She also in sales, if you're a Christian, I'm not trying undermine or I can't even think of the words that
Yeah,
to trick people into
yeah,
sales. I will never sell something I don't believe in. So I think that's also why I've been so successful, is because I have morals. All my clients know that I am a good person and I would never do anything bad behind their back. So, and also, if I mess up, I tell them, like, hey, you know what? I really messed up on this order. This is my bad. It cost us, this about $25,000, but I'm going to eat this one, and I will do it in hopes that, it's going to hurt me right now, but in the long run, our relationship is gonna be better, and in the long run, I'm going to make up that $25,000 or whatever. And it's just having that moral compass, and people will see it in you. If you don't have to be. Actually, in my profession, I do a lot of client entertaining. I go to a lot of games. There's a lot of drinking, a lot of partying, a lot of craziness, because we have company cards, credit cards, where everything's paid for. We go on trips to Hawaii and Arizona, and everything's paid for. So you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. And I've had a very long, successful sales career, I think, because I've made good decisions, and because I am a Christian and people know that. They know, my bosses know, they don't have to worry about me. I'm not going to be, drunk trying to show up at a client's hotel room at 2 a.m. in the morning, which happens to some people. And those those account executives, are not only humiliated the next day, but they're quickly let go, and their careers, dwindle very fast.
mm,
So I could only tell you the stories in the workplace. I mean, it's it's amazing that that adults are into some of the things that they are. And so it's really important, especially as a woman, I think, in a male dominated area, that you have your moral compass, and that you are strong enough and that you're confident in who you are and confident in God,
Mhm.
knowing that, you know what, I don't have to do this or this to get where I want to be, because I know that God's got my back. So if
Yes.
I do the right thing and I don't get that promotion, that's because I wasn't supposed to have that
Yeah.
promotion.
Yeah. That's a great way of thinking about that, definitely, when that happens. So, in the past, students have wanted to contact you, and one I actually from last year actually got a job. She's in Sacramento now for the Kings. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love helping people. I really do. So if you are interested in media, if you're interested in sales, the sports world, if you just want to pick my brain, anything, I am an open book. I had a lot of people help me along the way. So, absolutely, you can email me. Texting me might even be the best way, because I do have a 5-month-old and a 2-year-old, which is keeps me busy. So I might not text you right away, but I'll get around to it.
Okay. Can you give? Can you
I've helped
provide
a lot of people.
Can you provide
I'm sorry.
can you provide your number, or do you want to
Yes.
text that to me?
Yes.
Or what?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll provide my number. So my number is 619-307-3951. And yeah, let's start with text. I think that's the best way to, if you text me, and then from there, if you want me to look over your resume, then I'll give you my email, and we can, correspond via email. If you're in the LA area, I love Starbucks, so we can always meet for coffee.
Thank you.
I am down in San Diego, a couple times here and there, but usually I'm pretty packed with family, unless the school opens again, then I'll definitely make a visit to the campus. But
Oh,
yeah, please text me, and I'm happy to help in any way that I can.
hey, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll keep in touch, okay?
Perfect.
Larissa
Thank
Campbell.
you so much, Dr. Hewitt.
Yeah, my pleasure. God bless you. Bye.
Bye.